welcome to the Early Years Staff Meeting Podcast with Sarah, Kealey and Steph, the place where you can listen, learn and laugh with us about all things early years. Today we'll be discussing developing the underpinning ethos of your early years setting.
Yeah, we're starting with a big one, aren't we, ladies? It is a
big
hot topic.
Hot topic.
But before we get into that juicy material, how has everyone's week been?
It's been good.
My goodness, it's been windy, isn't it?
We've had some really mixed weather this week. It's been a bit strange, but yeah, we've had a particularly windy day.
And why is it that the wind correlates to their behaviour? What is that?
I don't know.
Every time. You know it's going to be windy. It literally physically whips them up. Lots of kite making today.
Lots of kite making, lots of paper aeroplanes.
And it's actually almost been too windy for making those things. I actually had a go at making a aeroplane launcher that I saw on YouTube, and the children were queuing up, waiting to see this like paper launcher with an elastic band, and it was that windy that it turned the launcher, which was like this long card like rectangle, and it literally like bent it in half, so I couldn't even use it. And every time I went to like do that 3, 2, it literally went and bent it.
And it's
exactly what they were doing. It's exactly what they were doing. Even the staff were like, come on.
Such a disappointment.
It's a disappointment in their little voice. She's like, it's okay.
In the end, I literally just took the aeroplane off the launcher and threw it, and it probably would have gone further than when I launched it off the thing. It's just like a pointless waste of time, but the thought was there. Okay. Before we start on our main topic of ethos, just want to say to our listeners a huge thank you for your support, your messages, and for listening to our first episode and our little briefings that we've done. So just want to say a huge thank you. It means the world to us. I know it means the world to us because we're just starting out, and any encouragement and any tips would be most welcome. So thank you so much.
We can't actually believe that there are people
in the world,
out there in the big wide world that are actually. And I mean, we can officially say we're a global
international
podcast. International.
I know.
Amazing.
Thank you to that one listener in Hawaii, by the way. You know who you are. It means a lot.
Yeah.
So to the serious stuff, and on to our main topic today, which is the ethos. So we might start by sort of saying, what do we mean by ethos? And I did a little bit of research on this and found a little definition that it is a clearly defined set of values which influence all aspects of your setting. And this includes your curriculum, your pedagogical approach, the way you interact with children, your environment, and how you meet the needs of all.
I know there's some real buzzwords in there, isn't there? Basically, what that means in layman's terms is what you believe and how what you believe about how children learn underpins your practice, basically, is what that means. So as a team, if you were starting to write your curriculum, or perhaps you're a new setup, it's about getting your team together to decide what you believe is best practice and how you want to organise your curriculum, basically.
And you're having the same thought, isn't it? It's you all having that same idea, an ethos of what you want. It's not just one of you, it's everybody.
And it has to be a collaborative process. If somebody's not quite singing on the same hymn sheet as you, it does make life quite difficult. No. And actually it is a journey. So you might start off believing one thing, and actually after you've done research and you've just had a go at implementing some ideas, you might actually change your track and go off on a different tangent, and that's absolutely fine. As long as it's in the best interest of the children, that's all that matters.
I think if you're working within a school, it can be difficult sometimes to, find that right balance, because you've obviously got to, your ethos has got to be incorporated into whatever the school's ethos is. So if you've got a real, attainment driven ethos, the school might try to restrict how you teach the children, how you approach the sort of the setup of the day or the timetable, or how much sitting down and working at tables children are meant to do. So it's about finding that balance, isn't it? Like it's probably easier going in as a nursery or a childminder on your own, that you can actually, you're your own bosses, so you can kind of set that ethos from the start of what, we really feel this is the way children learn best.
They are quite different workplaces to like nurseries and preschools, because they are, like you said, they're more data driven, and they do have, especially reception, they are accountable at the end of that early years journey. They are accountable for that data, those outcomes for those children. So, there are leaders that do get a little bit tetchy about that, and they do like to make sure that they are sometimes getting the best, I want to say, data, which isn't always what's best for the children. I'm trying to say this quite politically, but politically correctly. And it's about you standing firm and having what you believe is what's in the best interests of the children. So very child-centered. And maybe sometimes it does come down to having those tricky conversations with your leaders, your management, your head teachers, whatever that may be. And actually just really being quite firm and saying, actually, this is what I believe, and this is what I think is best for the children. And that is sometimes a really tricky conversation, and you don't always get it your way, unfortunately. Sometimes it's out of your control.
Yeah. I think it's really good to go to leadership with evidence, with research. So, get those really strong, pieces of evidence that say, well, this is why children should be learning this way. This is child development. This is, here's some examples of some schools that do it this way. And I think if you go to them with the evidence and the research, it makes it
definitely easier. And sometimes if you have an idea, and if you have, we're lucky we have many classes in a year group, you might say, well, this class is going to trial it for a week, and then we're going to report back. And sometimes that is just like a way of getting your foot in the door. Quite often in the past, haven't we, Kealey? We've had one class trialing this and one class trialing this, and we sort of all swap ideas, don't we, about what worked, what didn't.
Yeah, it is very much, trying it out. But again, it's working as a team, isn't it? Like you say, you trial that out, see how it goes, what worked, what didn't work, and then now we'll roll it out and we'll all try it.
It's and if you go, it's about going to the powers that be with a solution to a problem, rather than going to them and saying, well, this doesn't work and this doesn't work, I'm stuck with this. Sometimes our leaders aren't always early years trained, they don't always have the experience, and sometimes early years just freaks them out. As it does a lot of people. We're definitely a Marmite year. You love it or you hate it.
Oh, absolute Marmite year.
So, sometimes going there with a solution actually just minimises some leaders' anxiety about making decisions for early years.
So when we think about an ethos, why is it something why have we chosen it for our very first podcast, and why is it something so important and fundamental?
I think if you haven't got an ethos, you can't really get started, can you? Because you need to know where you're all going and what you're doing, and uniqueness of it for you, you can't move forward, can you?
It underpins everything, really. It's your provision, how you relate to parents and families, how you even to things like organising your budget. It underpins absolutely everything you do. And if you don't have a clear ethos, then everything is going to be very disjointed, and it's going to be really hard to make justifications to, I'm not even going to say their name, the O word, about why you're doing this. You're not going to have a clear path forward, basically, in anything that you do with the children.
And I think by being clear about your ethos, you are able to use it as sort of a barometer of, is this the right thing? Are we doing the right thing here? Does this align with what we actually believe and how we run our setting? Or have we gone down a little rabbit hole here? And I think it just helps you to ground yourself back to, best practice.
We did that a lot. Do you know, like going into each other and saying, is this right for the children? Are we keeping the children in the centre of everything? And something might have gone down, like as you said, down a rabbit hole a little bit, Steph, and maybe you're a bit like, oh, is this really the right thing? Then we'll go, actually, no, let's change it to this. This would be more. This is what the children are enjoying. This is what the children need. Let's change it to this to make sure that they're still the centre of everything.
And I think at the beginning, if you're a new setting or a new startup, it is going to take a lot of that, what you said, Kealey, that tweaking of, oh, actually, that doesn't feel okay. Let's rein that back in. Let's try something different. And it does take, I would say it took us quite a few years almost to like really define what we truly believed in.
Absolutely.
And it also, you have lots of waves of thinking come through, and it does change every few years, and that you have to decide whether you believe what that person is saying is okay for the children or if you don't. So yeah, it's what I'm saying, it's continually changing and evolving. It's not a static thing, really.
There are definitely things I've done as an early years practitioner before in the past that I absolutely would not see the value in
definitely.
that now, and change my perspective. And that's just, as we've learned and evolved, and, new ways of thinking have come to the forefront. I don't think there are any new ways of thinking, actually. It's just what happens to be at the forefront at the time, because
there are fashion trends, aren't they? And sometimes those fashion trends are really good, and sometimes they're not. And everyone's different. And it's about picking apart those ideas and actually, again, going back to your ethos and going, actually, do they put the children first? Are the children going to be happy? Are the children going to have fun? Are they going to learn? They're the real basics, aren't they? And if they're not, then perhaps stay away from it.
I think one thing we've used a lot over the years, though, something that we have kept on, kind of keep going on and on with, like, is less is more. That seemed to be a kind of mantra for a while, wasn't it? I found it really hard. Which I know
really, Kealey?
Sarah knows.
What's that?
I found less is more really hard, but it's so beneficial and totally is a big part of our ethos and has been for a while. But I did find it hard because I do like a lot of stuff, and I just kind of, I still have a lot of stuff, but I am a lot more, oh no, that's far too many in there now.
It takes skill, doesn't it?
But I think
as a practitioner,
as well,
the more you are part of the early years, the more you can hone your craft, as they say. And that less is more mantra, it's because it's really taken us a long time to really pick apart what less is more means for us. And what does that look like in what we're planning and all the rest of it, in our provision? What does that mean?
And I was just going to add that, especially now where we have children that are coming into school having spent the majority of their life having gone through a pandemic, don't necessarily have, the same experiences that other children would have had. So it is about that. We've had to do some of that this year where you strip back and you actually say they're not ready for this, so let's strip it back, take it back to real basics.
And actually that's scary. Some staff find that really difficult, especially with all the pressures that education puts on teachers and practitioners to perform and to get the outcomes that are needed. That is difficult to strip it back and actually to be brave and say, no, this is not right for the children. This is what our children need. And I think that's one of the things you really need to think about when you're thinking about your ethos, is you think about how you want your children to learn, but also what are those children's needs, because that will change year on year as you have different groups and cohorts of children come through. And also if you move from area to area, if you change jobs and that is your core ethos that you bring with you, then you're going to be coming across all different types and groups of children.
Yeah, absolutely. It's going to be different. Your ethos is going to very much depend on your cohort of the community, the area. It's going to very much relate on the uniqueness of the children in the class.
That's part of the challenge. It's part of the fun, but it can be blinking hard work.
So what is good practice when it comes to choosing your ethos and selecting your ethos? Well, I think there'd be some underlying shared values that I think you'd expect to see when you walk into any early years classroom. You'd expect to see a play-based approach to learning. You'd expect to see continuous provision. But depending on the needs of your children or your own passions of your staff, you can go down a particular route with your ethos. And I read an article in the Nursery World which talked about how one nursery, they actually interviewed their local community and found out that something that the parents really needed was this nursery that offered wraparound care and was really part of the community. And so they made that their sort of core ethos. So it was a very community-based nursery where instead of having sort of fencing around the setting where you couldn't sort of see what was going on, they had sort of open slatted fencing, so they felt that they were actually part of the community. They made sure they had very good wraparound care. So a lot of parents and carers needed that, so they had a real sense of being part of the community, and that was their focus, and that was what they chose was their priority for the needs of their community. So I thought that was a good place to start. It's looking at what does your community need, what do your families need,
exactly,
and what your children need.
Good for the family is good for the children, isn't it? Because families and parents are the children's first educators, and they know them the best. So
absolutely,
I think that's nice with the community thing. You are hearing more of that. When you guys probably don't know this, but I went to Hungary when I was 19 as a part of my course for being a nursery nurse. And when we went, so when I went there, it was an amazing thing. They took us into a kindergarten, and a part of their thing there was all community. They had full wraparound care. Their fences were open as well, so they could see. And they had a lot of the community coming in as well and helping the children. And another amazing thing, they had a slide in the middle of their kindergarten, no stairs to get down. There was a one-way system, and they had a slide in the middle that went down into a ball pit. Yeah. And this was a long time ago, because I was 19, 35 now. But even then they'd already started that kind of community, and it's kind of coming back into us now. Yeah. And that was in Hungary.
Wow. Kealey, I didn't know that about you. I know.
You dark horse.
Oh, no.
And again, some countries are further ahead in this journey than we are. And it's lovely that we're starting to, even though, that's quite some years ago, that we are starting to filter that through into this country. It's not common practice though, is it, ladies? It'd be lovely if it was.
No.
But yeah, this is the start of a revolution.
Maybe we'll start a revolution.
But as you said, we are starting to use some of the approaches. Like we were saying about the Scandinavian, right? I'm going to say huggy, and I know Sarah is, but I know Steph can say it.
Hygge.
That's it.
Hygge.
So hygge, that approach, we've tried a little bit of that. Just us as ourselves, we've tried a little bit of that, and we do like the coziness of it, and we tried to
so what maybe
areas.
you could explain what the hygge approach is, Kealey, for listeners that maybe haven't come across it before.
Get it right. Hey, so it's mainly very much in touch with the nature and nurture, and being cozy, and having that kind of feeling, and also being very close to nature.
It's bringing nature in, isn't it, to your surroundings? As much as possible, whether that's in the home or in your garden. So yeah, they're very much. Whenever I think of hygge, I think of cozy blankets, candles, and
cozy areas,
a roaring fire. Not in your classroom, but
But you could make one.
Yeah, you did.
Come on, we made one.
Yes.
I did bring a real fireplace into a classroom. Yes, it's not a real fire, but we do have a real fireplace that does make it feel cozy and real.
And it's hygge is a feeling. It's not necessarily objects, but there are resources that make you feel hygge. In our setting, so Kealey said we had a fireplace, but we did have lots of nice snuggly blankets. We thought about lighting, so we used to have lamps, turning off lights, soft lighting. It's making children, as soon as they walk through the door, that homely feeling, because schools can feel a little bit alien, especially if it's their first time in a setting. They're used to sofas and rugs and soft furnishings and their pictures of their families, and that's what we need to try and incorporate into settings to make it feel a little bit more homely and welcoming to our children. Okay, so that's hygge. I always feel like a caveman when I say that.
There is a song.
Hygge.
I'm sure I'm probably saying it wrong, but I feel like there's a song in the Frozen musical that sings about hygge. So and it goes sort of hygge, 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 hygge. So I feel like I've got that in my head, but maybe I've got it wrong. Also,
I've never heard that. I'm gonna look
Perhaps it's in your dream.
Missed it out. You must have nipped to the loo.
Okay, another an ethos, an approach that is dear to our hearts is the curiosity approach. So these are two ladies. I can't remember their names off the top of my head. I think look them up. They are very prevalent on Facebook and on online. But their approach is a little bit like hygge, but it's looking at everyday objects, things that children see in their homes that are, in their culture. I can't say that specific. And bringing them into the setting. So they actually don't have, inverted commas, toys. They have real objects that children play with. So it might be a real tea set, a real china tea set. It might be real scoops and spades and things, not plastic, in the sand tray, for instance.
Lots of natural materials as well. Conkers and pine cones and anything that's natural to definitely be using, especially in your sand area, but maths or anywhere. It all combines in, and just using those resources that are there already there that you can bring in from outside and bring them in. And if the children find sticks and twigs and whatever they found, acorns is our big thing. They're lovely oak trees. So acorns is a big thing at one point.
They're also very much fond of a car boot sale. They absolutely love a car boot sale.
They love it.
Yeah, so do I.
Go into that, Kealey.
Kealey, you're the
she is the car boot queen.
She is the best haggler Facebook Marketplace queen. Across.
Yeah. She is cutthroat.
I mean, I'm terrified to ask for a discount on this table that's already £2. Like, can I really haggle it down? I'm just like, I'll pay you more.
No. Kealey's your woman, Steph.
And I'm like, no way, I'll only pay £1 for that.
But again, they furnish their nurseries and their settings with real furniture that they've acquired from secondhand shops or donations. They don't use the catalogues, that have all of the classroom style furniture in. They use real furniture, and everything is quite muted and natural looking. They love a bit of Hessian, and they're very, I think I did read one of their posts once where somebody was criticising them for being more beige than a cardboard box. And actually they turned that negative into a positive, and they said, yes, perfect. We would like natural muted colours in our settings to not overwhelm children, to bring that hygge feeling, that coziness, a sense of calm. So yeah, definitely check them out. They are, they are amazing and inspiring. And who else has been sort of, has had a huge impact on our practice?
Montessori is definitely one.
I did a lot of research on Montessori when I was a nursery nurse back in the day. And actually, Montessori is very different from the commercialised Montessori that we see today. So people think that wooden toys, anything made of wood, is a Montessori toy, and actually it's not. So you do have to be careful with Montessori. It has taken on a commercial aspect which might not be how it was intended. Montessori was basically, it's teaching children skills, one skill at a time, how to learn. So literally how to hold a pen, and they will do it they'll chunk it into very small stages with specific resources, which tend to be wooden, but not necessarily. So that is, in a very nutshell, because it's quite a complex thing, is Montessori.
And is it about independence as well?
It does. I mean, the first thing that springs to mind is a cleaning station where children would be able to wash their hands and dry their hands and then prepare their own snack next to it, and they'd have everything laid out, all the tools, all the snack, and they would do that completely themselves without any adult help. Obviously they would have those skills taught to them about chopping, about being safe with a child's knife, all those kind of things. It's definitely about children being completely independent and adults not interfering with that independence as much as possible.
And while, we do take on aspects and we learn from all these different people and theories, we just need to sort of put it out there that we're not affiliated with any of these different approaches or independent companies or anything like that, or people. We are just sort of sharing what practice that we have seen and research that we have undertaken ourselves, and people that we want
because
to point
they're child-centered, aren't they?
You might find them just as useful. Yeah, and I think these approaches kind of underpin our own approaches and ethos. And another person who we've researched a lot and adopted some of the practice is Anna Epfgrave.
Yeah.
So if you haven't heard of Anna Epfgrave, who give her a little Google search.
She has amazing books. So that's how we found her, was these amazing books about reception.
I feel like it's called
so there is
Early
Early
Years
in Action. There's Reception in Action, Nursery in Action, Year One in Action. She has.
She's got Year One. Yeah,
I've read that one as well,
which is quite amazing that somebody is trying to bridge the gap between early years and national curriculum. I think that is amazing. We did training, didn't we, Kealey, with her? We actually met her.
Yeah, well, you did. I didn't end up going on it because I ended up going and having a baby, so I didn't get to go, which was like very sad. But I have read her Year One book. I can't remember why at that time, but I did read the Year One book. It was really good.
She's very inspirational.
So much
and she's very direct. And she says it how it is. So if you ever do training with her, brace yourself.
Her ethos is, it's in the moment planning, and adults following the children's lead, the children having a lot of free time to explore and follow their own interests.
Yeah.
So again, something we've adopted a lot of that into our own practice as well.
And it's about children. They're in charge, aren't they, of their learning, and it's about adults observing, knowing what the children's interests are, knowing next steps in children's learning. So having that real understanding of child development, and thinking literally on the spot, what can I do with this child who loves cars? What can I do with this child who loves cars, who is literally just bashing other children with cars? What can I do to support them in their next steps of learning? And thinking, actually, if I got some paper and a pen and sat next to this child and started drawing a road to direct their use of the car, then actually that's their next step. And actually that person hasn't written that planning down. It's all come very organically, very naturally, and in the moment, hence the title.
And you might decide to completely devote yourself to one of these strategies or ways of thinking, or you might decide to do what we kind of do, which is to dip into and find what works for our children for that cohort at that time. But I guess it's just worth saying that although that's more flexible, you do run the risk of diluting or conflicting some of those ideas if you do decide to do it our way.
And again, it is about knowing your children and knowing their needs. And if you know that, then whatever ethos or approach you choose to get the children to be where they need to be or want to be, then actually that's okay. Like, you can justify your motives, your actions.
Yeah, a big thing is definitely knowing the children, and each child. Each child is an individual, and one little thing might be okay for quite a few children, but they're not okay for another, and just changing things and making things as best for them to learn for each one, which can be really hard when you've got a lot of children.
Kealey, that moves us on to our next bit, tips and tricks.
Seamless.
Oh, thank you so much.
So again, it's having those initial discussions as a team. It's looking at what are the needs of your children. Is it PSED? Is it speech and language? Is it, I don't know.
Are you in an urban area where you need to bring nature in?
Yeah.
Is it a very culturally diverse area where you need to be representative of a range of cultures in your setting?
Exactly.
So one year we had a really, they all came in. We had a lot of children with speech and language. it was a really heavy year group where they needed a lot of support. And we changed a lot in the provision, but also I think that's when we brought in the sign.
When we started signing,
that is also a part of us. When we started signing, and I don't think I'll ever go back. We love to sign, and that really helped those children. And we just kind of thought, wow. And now we've kind of kept it on, even if we've had really like years where their speech has been wonderful and we haven't needed, that hasn't been their need. We're still using it because it just helps in so many different ways.
So as well, part of your initial discussions are just what you're passionate about. Like, what are your team passionate about? Because if you could be passionate about your ethos, then, you know, you're halfway there because you've got the commitment of the team then. So maybe think about what it is that you're passionate about. You know, you're truly passionate about making sure that, you know, children have particular life skills by the end of reception, or is it that you are, you know, a firm believer in getting them outdoors at every opportunity? So, you know, thinking of your passions as well.
Exactly. And it's what you need to combine that with what you know you need to be providing as an early years setting. So that does come down to the early years, you know, the curriculum. So in the UK, it's the EYFS, but in other countries around the world, they'll have their own statutory curriculum. So you do have to make sure you are following that as well. Unfortunately. I mean, it would be lovely if we could just do what we thought was best, but we can't. We do need accountability. Hot topic at the moment, but we won't go into that for the moment.
No.
And with that accountability comes the leadership team. And we've said earlier on, it's vital that we try and get them on board, because if they're not on board with you, that is a huge barrier and a huge challenge to making sure your ethos, you know, goes forward with anything that you do.
But as Steph said earlier, like going with your research to show them, to back yourself up that actually this is what we believe is right, and there is research behind it. And it, you know, if you feel like that, there is research out there to help you. But we've also said about like getting stakeholders involved, so the wider school, like we said about the community, haven't we? And parents are a really big part.
Also, get out there and visit other settings and get a feel for their ethos, or have a look on social media. There are so many different settings that now have their own Instagram accounts or social media that can inspire you. So yeah, do your research in that way as well.
And you can always learn, can't you? For even if you've been in it for a long time, you can still learn so many things just from having like young children ourselves, and going into like for my daughter, I went into her reception class for the first time, and I was like, wow, all these things. Oh, I like that. Oh, I like that. And I was like, wow.
I'm going to do a shameless plug. If you go over to our Facebook group, the Early Years Staff Meeting, you can share this good practice with each other. We want to create this community of sharing because it is difficult to go to other settings. It is sometimes difficult if you're quite remote to find that good practice.
It's difficult sometimes to get the time, isn't it? To go,
exactly.
So, else.
Head on over to our group.
So.
Share your good practice.
Share your good practice.
That'd be brilliant. Exactly.
Inspire others.
Fantastic.
Because it is important for staff to have that inspiration and that buy-in. So try to get your whole staff involved. Send your, direct your staff to go and follow a page or look at a post. Because if you can get everybody inspired and involved and have that ownership, then people will be passionate, definitely. And it will be a collaborative exercise.
I got a funny feeling I set a challenge for some TAs over one of the holidays to have a look at a Bluey.
Oh yeah, you did. I love Bluey.
Now, I vaguely remember this.
Do you remember that?
I do.
So like a Bluey episode had some really, really good ideas. Obviously, it's in Australia and they had these amazing ideas. Look, if Bluey can do it, come on, guys, we can do it too. And they did totally watch it. I think they thought, oh, she's lost it. That's it. She's gone just that big idea a bit too far.
If it was you asking, Kealey, I'm sure they just went along with it, you know. So once you've done all this research and background development and you're clear on what you think is good practice, you might want to create some sort of like a mind map or a mood board, or it could be Post-it notes of everything that you'd want to see in your setting. If you were a fly on the wall looking in your setting, what would you see? And what would the children be doing? And what would you hear? And would the door be open? And what would be outside? And what would be inside? And from that, you can decide your key principles and what your key values are.
Yeah, and then that's where you start to develop your vision statement, and that that can evolve over time. But having that initial vision statement put on paper, lets everybody know we are singing off the same hymn sheet. This is what we believe. This is what we are going to make sure the children have. And it's vital that everybody has that wherever possible to read and to keep linking everything you do back to it is like a guide to good practice in your setting.
And find things that do fit with what you want, do fit with your ethos, and try them out. That's the only way we've kind of learned. And some things
and
work
actually
and some
sometimes
things
it's taking a bit of your own medicine. Like we always tell the children, it's okay to make mistakes. We learn from our mistakes.
Yeah.
And actually, as practitioners, we're not always very good at following our own advice. So
No.
We get ourselves down and think, oh no,
we're not Instagram ready. But
no.
But actually making mistakes is how everybody learns. It's that those characteristics of effective learning in our UK, our early years curriculum, that actually adults need to have a go. Go for it, gorillas. This is for another episode, but it's another podcast.
Good old persevering parrot.
But we need to practice what we preach to children, basically.
And I think again that leads us seamlessly yet again into our mindful moment.
Mindful moment.
We've done the hard work now. We've done the CPD, and what we'd also like to do each week is to give you just a moment, just like something to take with you through the week or the day, because we know the stresses of teaching and working with children in general. It's not an easy job, and as Sarah said, we're not always very good at putting ourselves first. We're not always good at practicing what we preach. So we just want to promote positive mental health and well-being, as it is something that's forefront at the moment for our profession, and it's something we would like to promote each podcast as well. So we're just going to take a mindful moment now to allow you to reflect on what this means for you. So today the idea is to take a golden moment. Now, that could sound strange because there's something else golden, but it's not that. So take a golden moment for yourself. So maybe every day this week, for the next week, you could try this, to just take 5 minutes just to switch off. And maybe you could do a little bit of meditation, clear your mind. I've actually been trying this since January. It's like my New Year's resolution was to be more zen. And I've tried doing this myself in the mornings, just to try and lower my anxiety.
Until Sarah comes bounding into the classroom going, what are we doing today?
Until I've got my music going and everything. But I actually find it really hard. So I've actually gone to sort of guided meditation now, sort of guided mindfulness. So it's just taking 5 minutes just to switch off and not think about the future, the past, what's about to happen, what's happening. It's just to take that break and give your mind a break, and just schedule it into your day, no matter how busy you are, because you've got to invest in yourself. You can't give from an empty cup, and all we'll be doing all day long is giving to the children. So it's important to take that time.
And I think if you do find that very that difficult, if you're not one of those like Zen-minded people, then actually to start off, mindfulness is about taking in the here and the now. So it's about, you can start off by literally just focusing on something in front of you. So it could be a chair, and you would think, what does the chair look like? What does the chair feel like? What does the chair sound like if we move it or we touch it? What does it feel like when we sit? And it's literally being very, very narrow with our questions about an object in the room. And that is the start of doing mindfulness. It's bringing your focus to the here and the now. And the first time you do it, it might seem a little bit bizarre, but once you get practiced at it, you notice that all of a sudden the noise that might be in your head sort of starts to calm just for a few moments. And then you can, once you get that feeling, you get the idea of how to get your mind into that zone more quickly without having to do those focused questions. Does that make sense, Steph? Would you agree with that?
It does. I mean, I am still a work in progress when it comes to mindfulness. So, yeah, I probably need to do less is more and take it back a notch and stare at a chair.
It could just be also just, like as you said, just taking that bit of time out, because I must say I'm not great at the mindfulness and the meditation, but standing inside the classroom and just looking outside sometimes, just at whatever. And then, like Sarah, quite often we'd stand at the end of the day looking at a squirrel that was going up and down the tree. And there was silence, absolute silence between us.
It was quite actually a magical moment.
Watching the squirrel.
It was awe and wonder. Awe and wonder, which very much is early years.
And we kind of, it was like 4:00, wasn't it? That's it. Used to come down the tree, and we just used to stand looking outside the classroom at this squirrel. And I felt so much more calmer, just like, end of the day, squirrel time. That was quite good.
Take that golden moment. Sweet listeners, whether that involves a squirrel or not.
Or not. That was our time, wasn't it?
It did really help us. And it does sound very bizarre to any of our listeners, but it was literally in that moment for a good 10 minutes, I would say, we became Bill Oddie. And we looked outside at that squirrel gathering his acorns.
Well, no talking. We didn't even talk to each other. Didn't need to. We both were just happy watching the squirrel.
Now I have this vision of a soft focus lens and some romantic music, and Sarah and Kealey just standing with a squirrel.
Watching a squirrel. Yeah.
Exactly.
Whatever helps you, eh?
That will help me this week. That's an image to take with me through the week.
Try it. I bet you're still there.
Listeners, if you do have a go at this, please put on the socials. We'd love to hear what your golden moment was this week. How did you get that 5 minutes of pure calm and hygge? I would love to know.
Yeah.
So that brings us on to my plug.
Sarah's shameless plug of the week. We need a little jingle. Need a little jingle.
We do.
So
need a jingle.
It is,
jingle work in progress.
We would just love you to, engage in our social medias, our Facebook, our Instagram. We're even on Twitter, even though I'm not good at tweeting, but I'd love for you to engage with us. So, and subscribe.
And subscribe.
Exactly.
Subscribe to our podcast.
Subscribe. share, all of those things.
Share.
So engage. We'd love that. So thank you very much.
And if there was anything in particular that interested you and you want to find out more, if you go to our website, check out our meeting minutes, you'll find a transcript of our podcast. So
theearlierstaffmeeting.com. In there, all the information, even our episodes there as well. So check it out.
Wow.
That was that
brings us to an end.
That's quite an in-depth episode this week, but I know. It was sort of a whistle-stop tour of Ethos, basically. So if you're still listening, thank you very much.
Yeah.
Thank you.
And thank you.
We will we'll be back here very soon.
Yeah.
See you soon.
See you soon.
Bye.
Bye.